It's time for the View in Your Mirror podcast. I'm Katie Harms, and along with Lisa Rubin, we help you check in and curate the best possible you and the best view in your mirror. We share tips, tricks, and strategies from our 35 plus years in our respective industries. We talk about your day from morning to night and everything in between. We share our uniqueness, relish in our shared experiences. Along the way, we share conversation with fabulous people who give us their own thought-provoking insights. So come along as we help you hone the best view in your mirror. Lisa.
Good morning, Katie.
Lisa, I have an amazing trip to tell you about and something that I did to prepare me for that trip that you're going to be very proud of. But before I do that, I need to tell you what I missed a tremendous amount.
What, Katie?
Well, next to my grandkids and my kids, I missed Rustica Bakery tremendously.
What did you miss the most?
New Zealand and Australia is big on coffee. Flat whites, I learned what a flat white was. But I really missed Rustica's coffee. I missed their lattes. There's something about the way they do them. I just love them. I'm going to have to ask if they can do a flat white. Just see.
Put it on the menu, Katie.
Put it on the menu.
Put it on the menu.
I think I'm obsessed with the ham and cheese croissant. I probably
You
have
say
it
that every time, so you must be.
I know. I think once a week I stop in and have that.
You know, I had a moment last week because I'm trying to kind of stay away from sugar when I can. But I had this moment where, like, in my brain, and I was in Arizona, so I couldn't go to Rustica when I was thinking about this. But I imagined the monkey bread. Like, I could taste it. I know what it looks like. And so then when I got home, I had to go and get one.
That's your fave.
No, well, yes. But if I need a real comfort food, what do I get, Katie? Testing.
Chocolate cookie?
Yes, of course.
I just don't, I think of comfort food as being something more savory, but yes.
No, my comfort food is cookies. You know that. Okay, I'm a cookie person.
That's right. Oh, I love those. I love those cookies. I bring them as treats to my grandkids.
And they're good frozen, by the way.
Yes, they are. Rustica Bakery. They're in Edina, in Southdale Mall, but outside Southdale Mall. So the parking is so fantastic. You can run in, run out. Easy peasy. And Bidet Mock Sky. Also easy. Great parking on both locations. So that should never be a concern. They do lunches. So if you want a quick grab and go lunch, great place to do it. rusticabakery.com for more info. Lisa, I did it.
What did you do?
3 weeks. 3 weeks away, pretty much with a carry-on.
What does pretty much mean? There's a word in between there.
There is. We went internationally. We had I can't even think of the word right now. I'm flux-moored in coming up with the word to describe this otherworldly trip we took to Australia and New Zealand. It was incredible. It had been being planned for a couple of years, and every detail. We have a good friend that we travel with, and he is a planner. I mean, down to the nth degree. And it was incredible. So we were in Australia about 10 days, New Zealand about 11 days, and I did it all internationally carry-on. So my husband bought these suitcases, and I was very unsure of it. Solgaard, Solgaard, I think it is. A little roller bag. The rollers work fantastic. And inside the bag, it has this compartment that you pull out and you can actually hang it over a hanger. So you fold your things up and put them on these little shelves inside this compartment. And you have to be intentional about what you're bringing still, right? And then this kind of pulls to the side and folds up a little bit and fits in this roller. But what happens is when you get into the hotels, for the most part, there's a closet big enough to then hang this over a hanger, and you've got all your stuff right there. So you're not packing and unpacking. And the last night of the trip that we were sitting at dinner, and we literally went over the whole trip from beginning to end. And we had to really think about where we were and what we were doing and how many hotels we had. And honestly, we didn't count the hotels, but I would say we were in probably 10 hotels in that 21 days. 8 hotels, let's say 8 hotels. So packing and unpacking or, having suitcases with things strewn all over, we didn't have that because we had this little carry-on thing. They're this little hanging thing. And then besides that, I had my Low and Sons bag that has the zipper
Zip.
bottom that had my shoes all fit in there, and it slips over the handle of the roller bag. So it was totally carry-on. When we were international, going from place to place, we had a couple of, well, we flew from Australia to New Zealand, and then we flew in New Zealand a couple of times. And then we checked. We checked because they were a little large to be on the domestic. I think we could have pushed it, but we just thought, it's easy. They're small planes. We'll make it happen.
So in this, so your shoes were not in the suitcase.
They were not in the suitcase, no.
And how about like your underwear, socks, bras? Like, did you still put those
All
in
in the
those
all in
Ziploc?
the suitcase. Yes. That had its own little compartment.
Okay.
And in fact, it had like dividers within the little compartment that I had my underwear and I had my bras kind of in the middle. And we did do laundry 3 times when we were over there.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's fair to say that.
So yeah, I mean, 21 days carry on. You've got to plan. And that was planned in. And literally the cool thing about that is we were in the laundromat and out of the laundromat in an hour. Everything done. Done, clean, folded, put together. I had brought laundry sheets
Mhm.
and that worked beautifully.
I was going to say, Katie, I am so proud of you. You were so organized. Now
Well, I had
let's go a little deeper dive.
WWLD. WWLD was in my brain for 3 weeks before packing, right? Because I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to master this. And I was reading things like somebody had said something on social media about how nice and easy it was and effortless it was. And then, the comments, which are always kind of hysterical to read, and then people talking about, well, I want to wear everything I wear and I want to. I never felt like there were 3 pieces of clothing that I didn't wear the entire time we were gone out of everything that I brought.
Was it due to weather?
Pardon?
Was it due to the weather? Like you were expecting it to be warmer, expecting it to be colder?
All 3 of them were shorts.
Okay.
And 2 of the 3 were a little dressier short. And we just didn't do dressy that much.
Right.
And I, I brought a beautiful, etc. dress that was really easy to pack up and small. It was that black shell with that kind of netty over,
Yeah. Yeah.
which got real small and looked great. And I could wear the under with a different sweater if I needed to, so I made sure that I had options. And knowing that we were doing laundry, that we had dedicated, okay, this day we're going to have an hour here. And, we'd throw the laundry in. One time threw the laundry and the guys stayed and we went and walked. So it was a fabulous way to go. Now, the caveat to this. Also in my bag, I had this Toomey fold down tote.
I know where you're going with this. Mm-hmm.
All right, Miss Smarty Pants, what am I going to tell you?
All the things that you purchased, you put in the tote and brought it home with you.
Yes, but what did that mean?
What do you mean?
Well, that would be luggage piece number 3.
Exactly. So on your way home, you checked your suitcase.
You are so
and
right.
You had 2 pieces to bring on the plane.
Yeah, I actually ended up checking the 2 and I brought the tote on the plane.
So you checked the Low and Sons?
I checked the Low and Sons.
And nothing happened to it.
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
Because it was packed to the gills.
I know, but the straps of a Low and Sons doesn't have another strap to hold them together, so it could get caught on another suitcase, and pull.
But I asked them to put the luggage tag from Delta on around both those straps to keep them together.
You are just so smart and smarty pants. Okay. So I have another question because I was in your head. When you were packing for your trip, I mean, I
Mhm.
know we talked about it ahead of time, but did you do a plan like I'm going to do all black and white, or I'm going to
Yeah,
put pieces of color so that all your bottoms would go with your tops? So you
absolutely.
weren't doing outfits, you were doing basically a travel wardrobe.
Absolutely. 100%.
Another gold
100%.
star for you.
Thank you.
And
100%.
and tell me how easy that was. Like I know a lot of people are completely overwhelmed with all of those thoughts. And
No,
of course, that's what I teach and train my clients. But when you get it down, it's effortless.
it's effortless and it makes the traveling so much easier. And
Exactly.
honestly, there were combinations. I mean, there were combinations, but there's some things that, you have to make sure you have, right? Like I had a black t-shirt and I had a white t-shirt. My wardrobe for me was black and whites with the little splash of color of some shirts that I had. And I had a couple of bathing suit cover-ups that I got from Nani Nalu that were like oversized blouses. So I wore them tied around the waist with a pair of shorts.
Yeah, of
And they
course.
looked great. And right, one was just a white, it looked like a white button-down shirt, but it was longer and it was super cute. And I put it on with a pair of black shorts and a little jacket and fabulous. I
And
had I had one pair of tennis shoes and I made them black tennis shoes because I thought we're going to be walking a ton and all of that. So I don't want to have to worry about washing them or whatnot. So the black tennis shoes, they went everywhere. I mean, made sure they were extremely comfortable and they went everywhere. Had one pair of little flippy floppies, one pair of little mini strappy dressy sandals that went with anytime I wore something, and then a pair of slide on flat mules that also went with everything. Brought a couple of scarves for color if I needed those. Wore one on the plane just for if I was,
warm,
yeah, but not, I brought lightweight scarves because it was summer over there.
right.
Super, like this is the best I've ever done. I give myself a gold star on this one.
You get a gold star. And the fact of the matter is now you know that you can people anybody can do what you did.
Anybody can do it. If
You
I
just
can do
need to
it,
learn how to do it. You just need to learn how to do it and then do it. Like you
yeah.
can learn how to do it and go, I don't know. But like, and a lot of my clients, like I have one client that just texted me the other day. She's going on a 2 week trip internationally. Half of it's business, half of it's pleasure. And she's like, you got to just help me. And we talked about like what the bottom was going to be, what the top was going to be. And then because it's business, she had to get in a few blazers in there. And, we talked it through. And she's like, oh, okay, this helps me so much.
Yeah, it truly does. And I'm going to combine something I always tell my clients with what this whole thing. Nobody knows what you didn't bring. Nobody knows what you didn't
Exactly.
pick. Nobody knows that you left a dress you loved that you really wished you could have worn. Nobody knows. And it doesn't matter because you're traveling in different places. You're not seeing the same people, and it shouldn't matter anyway.
Right. Right. Except for when you're doing a business deal.
Oh,
Like
that for
when
sure.
my clients go internationally and they're doing business and they're with someone for the whole week,
Mm-hmm.
they can't repeat certain things. And then I always ask them, I'm like, okay, let's talk dinners, same people, not same people, because then you can double up and blah, 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 blah. So all of these things I think are really important, and people are traveling like crazy now. And also the right suitcase for the right person. Like I have a Briggs and Riley suitcase. That's what I use. And so you open it up and it gets really big. You pack it full and then you push it down so everything compresses like a bag. Plus I
Okay.
have plus I have my little rolled bags of stuff. But
Right, right.
and I can get it's crazy what I can get. And then my Low and Sons bag, I mean, you have bigger feet than me, right? So I'm a size
Mhm.
7. I can get 3 pairs of shoes in the bottom of my Low and Sons bag.
Lisa, I got three pairs of shoes in there.
I know. I mean, you did flat shoes, so you could do it
Yeah,
on
yeah.
top of it.
Yeah, I don't have heels. Yeah.
But if you like, I'm home this week, but then I'm going somewhere from here, so I had to pack my suitcase for where I was going. So I had to put 2 pairs of heels and larger shoes on the bottom of the Low and Sons.
You
Um,
know, first,
right.
there are those that are going to say, oh, first world problems, right? Which But here's the deal. What we're looking for is how to live a more curated life and have it be more comfortable. Because if you are fortunate enough to be able to travel, if you are coming and going, or if your job requires you to be, why not spend more time enjoying the places that you are rather than worrying about overpacking and trying to stuff things in and, taking an extra half an hour just to put things away when you get to your destination. It's just an easier way to think things.
Exactly. And also what I was going to say is that especially people who are traveling for business now, um, women, if they don't like what they have once they get there, they're not going to be as productive. So, and if they pack a certain dress and then they don't like the blazer or they don't like the cardigan, and then they're like, oh my God, those shoes, I just don't like the way my legs look. I mean, they go into a whole thing in the hotel room, which
Man,
is
who
not your
needs it?
personal space. The mirror isn't your mirror that you look in all the time. I say that all the time. It's
Oh,
like when you're packing for business, if you're going with the same people, we have different outfits, but bring your favorite pieces that make you feel good. End of story. If you're a dress person or you're a pant person, think about that.
right. And if your wardrobe, let's face it, if your wardrobe is curated to the point where you've worked on it because it's been important to you, then anything you pull out, you should be comfortable in because you've spent that time or those years or however long it's taken you to get there, to get that wardrobe curated. Okay, I have a question. We're going to switch gears a little bit because we're going to talk about our guest. I'm very excited. You have a lot of clients who you've been with for a long time. Have you seen clients shift what they've done, going from maybe their big career to doing something completely out of the ordinary? Or have you experienced, because your clients are very open and honest with you, discontent as people are going through their careers?
That's more of what I do than the clothes, Kitty. I mean, I've watched many clients start from their career and, decide that they're going to retire, whatever that means for them. Most of them don't end up actually retiring. And who do they call? Who do they talk to first? Me. Because, yeah, it is about the clothes, but it's really not. But it is about how they're going to show up. And people that I probably have 15 to 20 clients right now who have made the decision to step back or retire from their careers of what they're doing and deciding what they're now going to do. Are they going to sit on more boards? Are they going to start nonprofit? Are they, these are all just examples. And they're like, okay, Lisa, so what do you think? And I'm like, okay, I am not that person for you, but we're
We
going to
have
talk
that
to
person.
somebody that is. But,
We
but the weird thing is because so many of my clients wear work clothes every day, they don't know how to operate any other way. They don't know how to be who they are without their uniform on.
Mhm.
It's interesting you say that. And I say that to them right away. I'm like, we're changing your uniform. We're changing. And they're like, what? And I'm like, no. And then we go back in their closet and I rework with what they have. I don't have them go buy new clothes. It's actually a rule of mine. I won't buy new clothes for someone in that. I'm going to use what they have until they kind of decide what their next step is going to be. And then we're going to talk about what they need or what they don't.
And we're going to have after today, well, she exists even before we talked to her, and she's been doing great work. Juli Okal is a coach. She's a resiliency advocate, an adult learning expert, decades of expertise designing practical research-based tools to help individuals and teams navigate change, overcome challenges, and achieve meaningful growth. She was with 3M for years, did initiatives that reskilled thousands. She's got a passion and a deep expertise in adult learning, and she wants to help other people thrive. She has a website, theshiftmatters.com. It exists to empower, to embrace life's transitions and celebrate lives rich with purpose and meaning, right? She's an author and educator, supports women, especially those stepping beyond being a full-time employee to shape their futures with clarity and confidence. Just what your people are looking for, right? So we've got a lot to talk about, and I think the timing of it is so perfect. So we're going to welcome Juli to the podcast, and we're going to learn how she got to where she is. Welcome, Julie. Julie Okal. Am I saying it right?
You
Okal?
that's the best pronunciation I've heard in like years.
I mean, it's hard to
It is
really.
a mess. Four letters. Four letters. It's hard.
Okay, so we got it close. Julie Okal, thank you so much for being with us. As a lifelong person trying to figure out what the hell it is I want to do with my life, I think this is probably a perfect conversation to
Welcome
have.
to the
You've got
club, Katie.
me,
Yeah.
and then you've got Lisa, who's known and stayed steady with it forever. And then you got all the stuff in the middle. But what I loved from learning and meeting you is you talk about the shift matters and how many shifts, I think of how many shifts people go through in their lives. It's something to be celebrated, really.
It is. And we don't have a lot of places and ways to do that, do we? I mean, there's the obvious ones, right?
Char.
Well, it could be like um, like milestones, wedding, birthdays, the things, but the things that aren't so um maybe public,
Mm.
like the changes that happen that other people can't see, or the changes that come upon us that from the outside might not look so great, but maybe they are great, right? Maybe they will make everything great. We don't have a lot
Kind
of
of like
places.
as a woman going through perimenopause and menopause.
Okay.
That's a big one.
It is, and we're talking about that now, right? That
Yeah,
wasn't
that's a quiet, private one, but I've never been private about it because I went through it. So,
there. That's a great example.
mhm.
That is, but now, Julie, where you focused, and that has to come into it, Lisa. I mean, it truly does
Oh,
have
for
to come
sure it does.
into it, is the shifts we're going through and where we're at in our the course of our life. And you talk about the third act. You came upon your third quarter, the third quarter. You came upon your third quarter and made a significant change, yes?
I did. I turned 50 during the pandemic. And so, being a Gen Xer, we just kind of head down, follow the path, right? For like ever. And I think it was during that time, during the pandemic, when things were unraveling and all of a sudden my work became not as important as the other things in my life. And so I was finding a need both within myself and within the people in my community to talk about this and to really figure out what was going on. And I was really compelled. I was compelled to help in different ways. And so that helped my shift occur. It was really a tug. It was a tug when I really listened to myself. It was a tug to go out and help in different ways.
Have you
And what
always
was you?
have you
What?
always had the sense of purpose? Like there had to be a purpose to what you were doing?
Um, I go back to that time, like if we think about the what happened during the pandemic and like we're still kind of feeling the aftershocks of it, like today, right, with our kids and with us and our communities, loneliness is up, no one's happy at work, like all these gaps that formed. Um, I go back and think about all the things that kind of unraveled during that time, and not again, not always in a bad way. Like a lot of things, institutions didn't have answers for us. The things that always made sense all of a sudden weren't making sense. Like the status quo was not cutting it any longer. And so I think about this because I'm a possibility gal. Like what does that offer us as far as our own ability and our own capacity to kind of re-weld our lives back into a way of living that's much more sustainable, generative, and um, yeah, those two things, sustainable and generative. And I didn't know the answers to those questions back then, but I was really curious about thinking about it and helping other people think about it. And that's also part of me. I'm a questioner. I like to question my way forward.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Lisa, you had a question.
I know, but now I forgot it. But so we'll keep talking. That's part of that after menopause thing. I did not write it down. I should have
Oh,
written it down, but I was
I
listening
hear you.
to you, Julie,
I hear
and I
you.
was focused, and I'm like, but it will come back to me. I have no idea when, but it will come back.
I
Well,
believe that.
while we're waiting for that to come back, talk to me about generative.
Generative. So In the course of the last 3 years, I've met all these amazing people, like all these entrepreneurs. You two are examples of that. People doing things I didn't even know people were doing, and having conversations that I found are really um, mind-blowing in some ways. So one of the ladies that I met was her name is Kathy Allen, and she is Dr. Kathy Allen, and she writes a lot about generative leadership and how to use nature as a guide, maybe as opposed to looking at the leaders in our world. Maybe we could take a look out the window and say, oh, well, there's other ways of living, there's other ways of working together in a more sustainable way. So she talked about that concept. And as I was thinking about how I could help other people think about think about and consider questions to ask themselves about what kind of lives they're looking to lead now, like post-pandemic. The concept of generative really struck me, and generative is really it's a reciprocal idea. So they're kind of green spaces, I call them. And what I've learned about them is that it goes back and forth. So as opposed to maybe the world of work that maybe us three were part of, where you go in, you crank it out, and then you somehow you get to the deadline or end state, and then you just pass out and you're burnt out and you're toast. In a generative kind of life or set of activities, it's reciprocal. So where you go is intentional, and you're receiving as much as you're giving, and so you don't leave exhausted. And it's kind of a little bit more fun. And it doesn't mean that every moment and every part of your life could be generative, right? I mean, there's things like hard times we have that aren't always so generative. But just thinking about that in general, if you're having a really tough space in your life or situation, what are some generative activities or people or experiences that you could be part of that could kind of fill your cup up so you do have the energy and capacity to go help people that need you or deal with something that's hard?
Okay, so that's exactly why I do what I do.
Say more.
Well, I got a new word. I've had a generative career because I fill my cup up when I know I'm helping somebody else be the best version of themselves. And it doesn't matter what kind of day I'm having or what's going on in my life. If I can help them through a period of, well, I mean, a lot of my clients, I've been doing this 40 years. So some of my clients have been with me that long. Wow. So I have watched them fall down, get up, have multiple things happen. And yep, it's all through clothes, let's say that, and shoes and whatever. But it really isn't. And so now I have a new word. I mean, but that's exactly what, and maybe that's why I keep doing it. And maybe that's why I don't look for something new to do, because I love to be in that space. And
well, you're fortunate to have found that space, Lisa, right? I mean,
well, yeah, but I kind of carved it out too. I mean, I at a very young age, I realized I want to help professional women versus I didn't want to be a personal shopper. I didn't want any of those things because I'm just figuring this out, because I wanted to help smart women, because women that are busy doing their jobs, if they're really good at the other stuff, then they can't do their job at their best ability. And I don't mean being the mom or any of that. But what I am saying is, so many of my clients, when they first come to me, say, I don't understand why I need you. I can get dressed in the morning. I'm doing big things. And I'm like, do you go to the dentist and get your teeth brushed? Like, you brush your teeth every day, but you go to the dentist and get it professionally done. And they just kind of look at me. But I mean, that's kind of the same thing.
Well, and maybe, maybe what we're talking about are new ways to think about how we do all this. Like, this whole, like, our generation doesn't raise our hand and said, hey, maybe I could use some pro tips over here or some professional, right, guidance. I think that's really what this work is about around change now, too. It's as opposed to saying, oh, I got it, it'll be fine, I just have to suck it up and deal with it. No, there's actually phases of transition we go through. And if we were to understand those, we could step into them a little bit more confidently, and it makes it more normalized, right? So that it's not just us, because everybody goes through lots of change. And it sounds like, Lisa, that's what you you do in a very integrated way for your clients.
I guess so. And I've seen so many people be in a really scary place, right? Because their shift matters, right?
Your shift
Where
man.
maybe I've quietly been helping with
I
that.
bet you have. I bet
Not
you
maybe,
have.
not maybe, not maybe. You're that safe space.
I, yes. I
You're
mean,
that safe space. You're that vault that
yeah,
they know that they have complete
yes,
candor.
yeah,
And you're not going to try to tell them what to do. You're going to be there for them and you're going to maybe ask questions that'll help lead them because you don't even realize the knowledge that you've gotten from all your clients.
exactly. I mean, I say all the time to Kate, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't do what I did. And I do give it, if they ask me, I give advice to some of my clients because of the past experiences I've seen other clients go through. I mean, I have clients now that are in their 90s
That's
or
amazing.
have passed away. I mean, and I have one particular client, and I can't say her name, but like she's been a mentor of mine. She's 10 years older than me. She's a very high profile person. And when I'm having a bad day, whatever it is, not like personal family stuff, but like worldly stuff or whatever it is, I text her still. I mean, she's completely retired now. And well, she just wrote a book, but she's completely retired. And I'll send her a text and I'm like, just help me. Like, just help me, and she'll text me back. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing about my job.
Sounds like it.
So, Julie, something Lisa just said, I need you to help with this. We've kind of spitballed this a couple of times, having a different word for retired because
Oh,
Lisa just said about her client, she's completely retired. Well, she just wrote a
Yes.
book. And we need a different word.
it's being redefined. I don't, well, and the data is showing that boomers are, well, I'll start with Gen X. Gen Xers are more interested in kind of gliding out. So maybe stopping what they signed up for in a million years ago and trying some different things, scratching different itches, kind of updating some skills. And we're doing that at a pretty big rate. And that seems to be like a lot of the people that I've met in the cities anyway are doing a lot of really amazing things because we're coming out of the pandemic. Again, the ways that things have always been done, we're not so sure about that anymore. So maybe we could help in a different way. We have tons of skills at this stage, right? So how do you reapply them in a way that's helpful to your community or to the groups of people you're passionate about helping? So, and the boomers, again, boomers are, they signed up a long time ago and there weren't any career counselors, right? There weren't any, something found them or they found something and they stuck with it because darn it, that's what boomers do, right? Head down for 40 so many years, right? And so again, like people like you two that are just, you're doing something different. I told someone yesterday about your podcast and she's like, look how many seasons they have. I'm like, yeah. She goes, they're still doing it. I said, everybody's still doing it,
Yeah.
right? We're not done yet.
No.
We're not done yet. We're not up for, getting to the end and hanging it up and playing golf. I am not seeing that anymore. I am seeing like a renewed kind of revitalization and reorientation to the contributions we'd like to make. And I think that's super exciting and
And throwing a golf game in every once in a while.
totally.
Can all live. That's the thing.
Well,
It's
that's
like
the thing. It's a
throwing it all into a
portfolio.
pot. Yes.
That's right. And that's what I wrote about is, this concept of a green portfolio life where green being generative, so that the things you choose they're not draining you, right? You have it's reciprocal. And portfolio meaning, they can match up to your values and your priorities. It's not someone's handing you a strat plan that someone long ago came up with. Now it's like, what are the pieces and elements of us that are important to revisit and maybe to dust off and to kind of reclaim and use those as kind of jumping off points for ourselves to kind of do this redefining and reimagining for ourselves. And it's super exciting. I'm really grateful for the work. We just finished a class last night called a Squeeze the Juice class. And we spent, a good chunk of time together revisiting all of this. Like, what are my values? Like, no one's ever asked me that. In 40 years, Katie, did anyone walk into your office and said, Katie, this morning by noon, we got to get those values of yours understood. What are those? I mean, we haven't visited this stuff in decades, if ever,
Yeah, I
right?
can't, other than doing a company, what are our mission, vision,
Company
and
values. Yep.
values,
Perfect. Perfect.
nothing beyond. Like what about the people within that company?
What about the people? And I
What
think
are they?
that's what the pandemic, it offered me anyway, is as work became a little further away, like physically, distance wise, all of a sudden the things that were priorities showed up a little closer to me. Like, oh, by the way, people were in my house, right? All the people came home.
Hmm.
And my family became a priority, my community. And so all of a sudden I'm like, there's other things.
Hmm.
There's other things calling me right now. And so yeah, it's a privilege really to
Do you
think about
think
those things.
too, you heard more people talking about it because
Yes.
people had time on their hands and they were very honest about the WTF.
WTF. And I think we could, from my experience, we could really name what we didn't like. We could name what made us grumpy and what was really hard. But what was really difficult, and it me included, was, well, what else? Like, what else could this look like? Right? What else is possible? How do we think about this? What's the new language we can use? And so that's what I ended up writing about it last year. Is like, okay, we can totally put some language together. There's a lot of great great work to build on. Let's make it modern and get it out to people and see what happens.
We're going to talk more about that. We're going to take a quick break.
That's fascinating.
This is, I am loving this conversation so much.
I am too. Thank you.
Hang on, we'll be right back. You are invited to make your way to a beautifully inventive and delightful store in the Galleria called Sweet Ivy. Becky Leffler's inspiration for the store comes from her vacations in Marco Island, where she relished in the sensory delights, intoxicating aromas, vivid colors, and exquisite products in the local gift shops. She has gone on to curate a beautiful selection of apparel, shoes, accessories, and gifts born of her love for unique products and her unwavering belief in her vision, brought to life and cared for by a fabulous staff. Feminine, chic, pieces that will elevate and stay in your wardrobe for years to come. Brands like Tyler Bow from Rhode Island, Spartina 449, and Magic Pants by Lise. Not to be forgotten is Littles by Sweet Ivy, their predominantly children's store and home to Barefoot Dreams, which you need to experience. Give yourself the gift of this store in the Galleria. Shop Sweet Ivy. ShopSweetIvy.com. We're back and we're going to talk about the books you wrote, the classes you have. And I think we've got a good sense of why you got there. And what I love about Lisa is she's very concrete. And I am much more like she's this straight line and I'm like right all over the place. And
Love it.
we get to this intersection.
Yes.
She's incredible. And what I'm hearing you talking about is an evolution of how you got to where you are.
Mhm.
Talk more about that and then tell us about what you're doing with it.
Yes. So the evolution is a real thing. And if I back up, my intent was to go on an adventure. That's the language I used. So I didn't really know what that was going to look like, but I was up for whatever would happen. And so I needed to have some trust that, if I put myself out there, it would be an adventure. And that's what the last 3 years have been. And I didn't have a master strategic plan. And I love that part. So that was I kind of share that with the Katie version, which is just kind of up for whatever happens. And then, I am professionally trained, Lisa, as a process improvement person. I've got the Six Sigma, I've got, operations, boom, boom, boom. So I think one of the interesting parts about the last 3 years, has been really playing with what my default settings were as a person, as a professional, and who I'm wanting to become now and how I want to present myself now. And so it's a lot of unlearning and relearning. And I call it rewiring because, it's not a bad thing. These aren't bad things. These made us all successful, right? The ability to, be very linear and stick to the plan and get it done by Friday served us well for could be decades, right? But now when it is just me in my home, my ability to pause and listen to my gut starts to matter more. And so I have to create space for a different kind of listening and a different kind of guidance in addition to all the data that I'm gathering and all the input. That is not simple to do. I'm finding that those that I'm working with are valuing the idea of picking a couple things and playing with them that maybe aren't serving us so much now. Like our task orientation was one of them. Mine was pace. Like I was 100 miles an hour from the minute I got up. And that was not serving me and those around me in this new chapter. And so I wrote about that, like how I, self-coaching, right? How I identified the area I wanted to improve, how I identified some practices, and then how I'm playing now with rewiring myself to be less on fire all the time, have a more consistent cadence for my life.
So what tools in your brain or whatever or how do you pause or stop? How do you get that to happen? Because the rewiring part, I think, is so difficult for so many people.
It is.
If they don't have a tool to do, is it a noise? Is it a this? Is it a that? Like, how do you make those pauses?
Yeah. And it's a great question. It's a lot of it's self-coaching, Lisa. I mean, you know, um, there's strategies and ways to identify and have practices around these things that unless you had a certain kind of a job and a certain kind of a company, you wouldn't have access to these type of tools. And so that's one of my intentions is to make self-coaching more accessible for more people and to spark conversations around it so you're not up against it on your own. So I mean, everybody has something that, right, it was maybe not serving us now that did really well for 30 years. 30 years. What would I say? Something specific? One of the things I read about is having a noticing practice. These are all self-coaching skills again, and noticing practices allow us to make space both for identifying the areas or the patterns, our self patterns that aren't so helpful, and to get curious about them as opposed to judge them. And then noticing those for a period of time. Like I'll give my example. When I was playing with the idea of my pace, I noticed for a handful of time, because again, I've got formal training on this kind of stuff, but when was my pace picking up in a given period? So over a period of 2 weeks, when was I starting to rush? And I found it was during transition periods. So getting out of the house, getting ready for a meeting. It was in times of change. And interestingly, and when I would ask myself questions about that, it all went back to when I was momming, back when everybody was small and it took so much energy and effort to get everybody out of the house. It was like an event, right? No longer momming small people. It's no longer an event. It's just me, it's like, what's going on? So I could say, oh, wait, the context has changed. And when you're transitioning from home to outside or before a meeting, just be aware that those are the moments. Those are the shifts that are going to matter for you. So what could you do instead? What could you do instead? And so then we just play with other ways you can do that. So I try it when I'm talking, I try not to speed up as much. I give myself more time and a lot of grace because it's 30 years in the making, right? It's a long time. So that's just an example, Lisa, of
I think it's a very good example
playing with pace.
because I think every single person in the world, no matter who you are or what you're doing, has that issue.
Well, and I wonder about this because one of the things I found myself doing that I couldn't find out in the market, you have a lot of people and like in institutions, higher ed, that have theories about us, and study us, right? We have all the theories, all the models. And then we have us out here, in the thick of it, life. But I couldn't find the connection point. I couldn't find the stories and examples of people talking about the theories with examples that were accessible for me to go try on. And that's what I was trying to bridge in the book is I'll give myself as the example. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I don't, it's here's what I did. Here are some pro tips. Let's normalize this. This is not just for Julie. I mean, everybody's got a thing, like you said, Lisa, or 7 things or 17. And I found that's been helpful, having examples and having pro tips. So it's not all theory, right? It's not all a bunch of models.
It's day-to-day stuff.
It's applicable. We're skill building here.
That's
That's
a
what this
great word,
is.
applicable. That's the word I've been trying to think of. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It is applicable because higher ed and professors and theories and it's data driven and all of these things probably work, but when you get in the day to day and you're in the practice of living, you don't want that. At least I don't. I want to know some real practical things that people have gone through that could potentially help me.
Right.
Those are
Right.
the conversations that I'm having with my friends. Those are the kind of books that I want to read to go, oh, this makes so much sense.
The things to remember is that there's people that have been studying this forever. I mean, this isn't like the first rodeo, right? For how people navigate change. I mean, there's work that goes back to the early 1900s and earlier, but it's how do you offer it in a way that we can hear it, right? That is, and it's engaging and it's not a case study.
It makes it simple. Like I always say, my son is a tech guy, and when I have to ask him a certain question, I say, Noah, pretend your mom is 5 years old. Now talk to me. But that's the same thing
Hard.
as what you're talking about. It's like everybody is, on a certain plane in their brain, right? And then the shift matters, right? But then if you talk about it at this at a higher level, some people aren't ready for that. It's like, let's talk about it as if we were young children, right? And what would you tell your 5-year-old? If I say that to my son, he's like, okay, mom. And then he'll start talking again. I'll go, more. Like, talk to me like I don't understand all the words, And then sometimes he'll tell me something like, oh my God, now I get it, So I think for some people, and I do that in my own work. If I'm going in and helping somebody, it is so overwhelming for someone to hear a wardrobe. Like that is overwhelming. That's dollar signs, that's all of this. And so that's why when I go in and I say, I want to look in your closet and I take what they have, it's the same thing as what's in your brain. And I work with what they have, they understand a wardrobe better. I mean, that is like my magical piece, right?
Yep.
Now you need a professional person like they need you or they need me to help them do that. They can't do that on their own. But once they establish that, then they're not going to go out and do that retail therapy as much as they normally would. They're not, that was just an example, or they're not going to go pack quickly for a business trip. And when they get there, they hate everything they pack. So they don't show up the way they want to show up. So I think that it takes what you're teaching people is so beneficial because it takes you into your personal life too.
Yeah, it is about us. Goes back to us.
And like we were talking about, one thing I want to say, I went back to college in my 40s and it was so interesting because I was taking business communication, or I can't even remember some of the classes that I was taking. At this point, I had started my own business. I had been working I thought, wow, in theory, this might work, but in the real world, I remember thinking, this doesn't work in the real world. So what you're talking about is the practical applications of what really work for people. Now, getting back to another point that we were talking about is, I think we were talking about this a little bit on the break, is evolving and being okay with the not being sure of things and how that's a whole thing in and of itself. Talk about that a little bit.
It is. So when we talk about change, it's interesting. There's a model from William Bridges. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he talks about 3 different stages of transition that follow a change. And that's one of the courses I'm offering and just finished up. The stages are, something ends, essentially, an exit, And I gave the middle stage, the second phase, I call it the liminal lounge, because it's not where you were before the change, and it's not where you're going to end up.
That uncomfortable place in between?
Well, it's not, airport lounges aren't so comfortable. Like, they're not built forever. They're built
Right.
for temporary hanging
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
You meet interesting characters in the lounge,
Yeah.
but nobody shows up in the lounge with your ticket to the next place. You got to do that work, right? And
Mhm.
then the third phase is new beginnings, fresh starts. So back to your question on not knowing, it's if we're going to rinse and repeat what we just came out of, we can believe we're skipping all those stages. But if we really want to take a step back and do some, thinking and some revisiting to some of our core elements, like our values and our priorities, then those will help us have another set of questions to say, now what, right? What could be possible? What might be interesting to me now, as opposed to going back to my default answers. Julie's answers 10 years ago were different than my answers today. But I had to kind of have trust. I had to have some faith. They're gonna appear if I give myself a little space and have some good questions to ask. And I surround myself with people that will help me move it forward. Find the helpers, find the people that are doing things that are different, right? Like talking to both of you. I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago, right? I was inside of a system where you were talking to yourselves a lot. Again, great, needed to do it. It was successful. The people were brilliant where I came from. Um, but this is a different kind of work, right?
And that brought you to where you are. You had to
Totally.
go, you had to go through that to get to where you are.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the skills we pick up, it's amazing, right? Our toolbox is full. And so it's to me, it's like a bigger question of if we're not done yet, what does that look like for each of us? Like what might be possible do we have groups of people that we're interested in serving? Do we have big problems that are driving us crazy? Not everybody is kind of enchanted by the same questions. So you got to ask different ones for different people. But in general, what is a life filled with generative moments and experiences? What does that consist of for you? And your answers are going to be different than mine because we're not the same people,
Right.
right? And I find that so fascinating. It's just like your work, Lisa, no one has the same answer. And I come from a world where sometimes it can be the same answer. And we're just confirming the answer because, time and money and things and budgets and deadlines. And so in this
Efficiencies.
space, it's like, well, what if we give ourselves permission to go try some things and then changed our mind because we didn't like how it went?
But the interesting thing is that you can ask the same question to everybody, and everybody is going to come up with kind of a different answer, but it stemmed from the same question.
And it's okay. It's
And
okay to have your own answer.
yeah,
And it's okay to have no answer because
yeah.
sometimes you have no answer because no one's ever asked you the question before.
So can what you're doing
Yep.
help people who may not want to necessarily leave where they're at or make big shifts, but they just want to have an easier process? I don't know. I think about,
Learn more about themselves.
yeah, learn more about themselves. I think about companies like just big global companies, 3M, Boston Scientific. I mean, there's a lot of good people still working in those, and they're not all going to be the new up and coming, right? I mean, there's a lot of that, but they're going to be the people that are committed to and retire from there.
Yeah, I'm finding the most interest from those like 45 plus that are wanting to think about what's next for them. That they're in the headspace where they're up for that discovery process.
Maybe it'll be interesting to see what these companies do with their employees if their workforce is continuing to turn over at those phases. That'll be an interesting thing, probably for somebody else in another book. But okay,
Could be.
couple remaining things. I want you to talk specifically about what you're doing, your book, and your classes. I should say you have a couple of books.
Yes. So the overarching intent for the year is to make self-coaching more accessible and to spark meaningful connections. And those are done through a guidebook that came out self-published last December. It's very exciting. And that essentially it's curriculum. So it's curriculum for the course that I'm offering about squeezing the juice. And that course is specifically for women in their third chapter, looking to really squeeze the juice out of their lives. The other course that has, again, appeared and evolved was a course more on change in general. So male, female, but it's how to think about and understand change and then how to really rock it when you're anticipating a big change in your life or you're in the thick of one, because I don't think we have resources for that. And so that was, that was a course that even couples went to, anticipating one, changing or pivoting in their career, anticipating someone getting married, like big changes. And so both around change, one around more specific for women, and kind of a smaller cohort. And the second one is open for all and again, curated for all, curated for male, female, and all, and everyone else who wants
Really,
to.
anyone who's interested in learning more about themselves.
Anyone who's interested. Yep. And really skilling up around change. That's essentially what it is. We're getting more confident, increasing our energy to tackle some of this stuff, and we're increasing our strategies, right? So we want to have those things in our hip pocket. We don't want to have to stumble around. We want to know my three go-tos, so that it's just like the closet, Lisa. You don't want to have this big event and have to walk in there and go, what am I going to do? You want to have it ready, right? You want to be ready. And changes are there. It's getting more interesting out there. So
It occurs to me that what you're doing too is you're giving people more strategies to say yes to the things that matter to them as opposed to
interesting.
yes because it sort of feels good or yes because they think they need to.
Mm. Yeah, we try to cut out the needs and the shoulds at this point.
I hate the word should.
Should is an outdated expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. Do you feel like an organized person? You strike me as someone extremely organized.
Well, I would say yes, and I can be really organized, and I can be okay with not having a plan. And that's taken a lot of work.
But wait a minute. You can be okay with not having a plan in your professional or in your personal?
Yes.
Both?
In this point in my life, it's hard to separate them because I'm on my own, right? So myself and it's all one conversation at this point for me.
Yeah, and I've been on my own for a long time, so I get that.
You get that.
That. But I try.
Julie, what would your advice be to someone in their 20s, 30s of how to approach their career?
Here's a great question. 20s and 30s. So we're talking millennials. What the data will tell us is that it won't be one company forever.
Right.
We go to the trends. The data will tell us that they're going to take breaks along the way and not wait to the end and go golfing. They're going to save money. I've got some of my kids' friends. They're making some bucks and they're just going to work for a year and then they're going to go backpack. Like this whole notion that we have to wait and then be done. They kind of value other things besides crushing things at work. I think they could teach us a lot, actually. So my advice would be keep talking to each other, find the helpers, and be proud of your choices.
Kind of where you wish we would have been along the way.
Yeah, but we all did the best we could with what we had, right?
Yes.
I mean, this isn't about, it's not a good and bad, and there's not but things are evolving, right? And our kids have different scenario than we did, right?
That's true. I can't say to you that everything you did brought you to where you are and not accept that for myself or for anyone else, because that is our path. It just depends on the lenses you wish to see it through, right?
Right. And how to keep looking forward. I know you talk about the lens and, the view in the mirror, like podcast name. And I like to think about, hey, what's down around the corner that maybe if you were to try that out, or if you go to talk to those people, maybe that's something that you didn't even know, right? We don't know that we don't know. They could put you on a whole nother trajectory. right? And how many of those moments are you building in? How many of those opportunities are you open to that
Mhm.
aren't planned, that might not be some master plan, but maybe it's just nudging myself a little bit
And
into
I
new
think the younger
directions.
generation is more apt to do that.
Do you
The
think?
20s and 30-year-olds.
I'm
Or do
pretty
you
sure
like it not?
I was born too early. Let's just put it that way, because I think I'm a millennial in my thinking of how things get done, which is really interesting. But okay, I I love this so much. Julie, thank you. If people, the shiftmatters.com
That's
is
it.
really the best way to
Mhm.
get to you.
It is.
It's a
It is.
it's a really well done website, by the way, with great information, every bit of it, and an opportunity to sign up for a newsletter. And I'm strongly considering doing one of the classes if the timing works
You
out.
can stay
So
in the know as things evolve. We're trying to be open to evolution.
love it, love it.
And thank you both. I mean, honestly, when I was in the writing cave last year, the only thing that helped me stay on that course was anticipating conversations like this. It really was. It was like I didn't know who I was going to be talking to. I didn't know when and if those were going to show up. And then again, we met, right? We met happenstance in an event where we would go learn about something.
Yeah.
And those possibilities were really what compelled me to do all that editing.
Well, and we should probably not should. I would like to shout out Katie Seaver because that was the event that we were at
There you
this morning
go.
at her event. And I
I have
just,
that's the pad I'm using with all my notes.
Oh yeah, you know what? I have that too somewhere.
Let's talk women, but that's the
let's talk
pad.
women,
Yeah.
which is I think she'd be proud of us because really isn't this what's all about is really furthering and giving ourselves the permission to be all that we are and all that we can be.
Well, and I think, all of us really are excited about and really live for um, coming alongside other adults and helping them excel, right? Excel in whatever it is that's important to them.
But also when groups of women get together and you start having conversations and then you realize, oh, I'm not the only one thinking like that. I think that that helps people get to a different place. Where if you're just solitary and you're by yourself, you can go down a deep mental
You
hole.
can.
And so I think that that is good. And now some people don't like that and they would just like to do a one-on-one like with you and they don't want to be in a class with other people. And that's okay too. But I think that it does help.
And we just got some feedback last night, and that's a high value is getting together in person and talking through some of this stuff together. Again, getting our own capacity in our own phase of life to be able to do that. We weren't taught that. That wasn't something that was demonstrated. So, okay, it's our responsibility. And it's really quite lovely, actually, because you get ideas, right? Lisa, like you said, someone might answer a question that you would never answer it that way, and maybe that sparks something. It'll
Right.
send you down a whole nother path.
But how about the people listening to our podcast that aren't from Minnesota that want to get in touch with you or do you have any online classes or anything so that they can still be part of a group, but yet not be in person? Is that also
That's a
a
good question. Um,
possibility? Or maybe if it isn't, that's something to think about.
it is something to think about. Well, this is the first 45 days, right? So it's like to be determined. And I would say that's one of the reasons I put the guidebook resource out there for people that are, that might value that on their own, at least as a starting point. So they can try it on and see. And then and again, I'm open. I'm open to learning what the need is and what would add the most value. So it's only February and it's half frozen. So things could happen still here this year.
Well, and you're
Things
getting
throw.
good feedback. You're getting good feedback, and that's that's incredible. And bravo to you for taking the risk, putting yourself out there, for knowing in your heart of hearts that you had something and going through what did you call that phase?
Oh, the liminal lounge.
The Liminal Lounge.
The liminal lounge. Well, and you know, again, it's less about feeling like I'm gonna go risk and like there's this some courageous thing. It's more about what is the what is it that I want to contribute to now, and how do I want to help? How do I want to help?
What's
And
your
that,
legacy?
yeah, well, yeah, and that's what motivates me in this phase is that. And that if I stay focused on that, I get less wrapped around the axle about all the other things, you know, the and I just focus on providing those values and resources in ways that I'm not seeing out there right now. And that's been really helpful. And I think that's a pro tip.
All right, Julie, what's your superpower?
Resourceful. I'm resourceful. So I have I if I can't figure out something or if I can't see a path, I'll play with it until I can.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And I hope to offer that to others too, because I do believe that all of us have that capacity in us. We just don't know it yet. It's not something we were taught. It's not something it's been modeled to us. And that goes back to self-coaching. It's like we are all pretty awesome. I mean, let's be honest.
100%.
Yeah.
Bravo, Julie. All right, we're going to switch gears for our last few moments. We're going to talk about your nonprofit.
Yeah.
You picked CHADD, CHADD.org,
Yes.
which is Children and Adults with Hyperactivity Attention Deficit Disorder.
Yes.
Why did this one speak to you?
So back in the day, hardcore momming, we had one of our daughters diagnosed with ADHD. And when you have twins, over time you realize when one of them is diagnosed with something, just might as well just assume. So in the spirit of learning and lifelong learning, we found a resource. We found Chat as a resource, and that is it's the nation's leading nonprofit serving people affected by ADHD. And they had a parent-to-parent training. So again, unlike people studying people that have ADHD with models, right? This was a set of training that you could purchase. And my husband and I sat through hours of this, taught by parents with kids in the same context on how to strategies. And oh, by the way, of course, these parents, you know, they have PhDs. These are not, you know, it's not like our, yeah. So they were well qualified and they were also parents. And as adults, you know, the research shows that we are more likely to listen to each other than we are somebody on a stage. And so that not only did it help my husband and I have something, we found the helpers back then, and it helped us with a language and a whole set of skills that, by the way, we needed to get good at that fast. And I had never heard of them before. And it was very well done. And we could do it in a busy parenting world. And that was virtual back in the day before we knew what that was.
Wow.
So it's just a great resource. And they do a lot of research, but the main message out of it is find the resources, right? There's resources now on everything. So what are the things? What are the topics? What are the sticking points? And who else in your world is having conversations that you want to understand more about, that maybe is down and around the corner, who has the perfect closet, you know, who's got all the things, who's got the house where everything fits, you know, like Katie, your work, who's already doing that. So you don't have to start from scratch and muscle our way through it like our generations did. It doesn't have to work that way. We can get smarter. So that is just an example of that.
And I love what it says on the website. Find your community.
Find your community.
Find your community, which is exactly what you're talking about. And who
Right.
doesn't want that in any aspect of their life to make life easier? So
Right. We get the problems we're facing they're not our grandmother's problems, right? And so, you know, joining forces, I think that's where the juice is.
I love it. I wanna end life with all the juice squeezed out.
Right.
There you go. And I got a long ways to go before that happens.
You do.
Julie,
Me too.
thank you. We all do.
Thank
Yep.
you, Julie. This was really good. Enlightening.
And I learned a lot about you too, which is what I love to do. So thank you for the space and for what you're doing, carving out all these conversations, because it's reaching women that would never hear any of this and know that all of this was possible, and you make it accessible. So thank you for the work you do.
Thank you. Lisa, my brain is exploding. What's your brain doing?
It's doing the same thing, Katie. It's exploding. It's got so much going on in it,
But ideas.
but in a good way, in a very good way.
In such a good way. And almost To say that we need permission to think in these ways, it's not so much that, but it's just knowing that there's somebody out there offering this in a way that's relatable.
Exactly. And she's so easy to talk to, and she's a really good listener. I really enjoyed this podcast a lot. And I think she has a lot to offer to people in a way that is understandable and doesn't overwhelm them.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what transpires as she continues on. With that, you can find out more about us on theviewinyourmirror.com, and that'll take you to each of our individual sites. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook. We love to hear from you. The comments that we get are really fun, and we have some fun guests coming up. 2025 is proving to be a really
interesting
and evolving year. So here's to all of that. What's important is to remember that we are all evolving, right? That every time you look in that mirror, you need to see the best version of yourself. Some days you don't feel so great about that. Give yourself your best smile. Tell yourself just how flipping awesome you are, and have a phenomenal day, week, month ahead. Until next time.